So today we have the Northeast Airlines and Delta Pilots reunion. It's a fly-in that occurs on the first Tuesday of June in October at the Plymouth Airport, and it's been on for 20 plus years, hosted by Bill Grady, the late Bill Grady. Most of the airplanes here are owned by retired airline pilots. Many of them are vintage, and there's quite a variety from planes in the 1930s, like this Waco biplane. We have a military trainer right here. If you look over towards this blue plane, blue and yellow, you have a transport, military transport from back in the 40s. And then there's a number of recreational planes. You have a float plane here, and then there's many experimental airplanes too, home builds.
Well, the Army would have used it as a scout, but in Korea it was actually, you see this on MeSH, there's a variation of this aircraft where it carried a litter on each side and a pilot, and actually, believe it or not, they had less power in their engines than we have here. This is only 210 and it's underpowered. They had about 178 horsepower in some of theirs. And so, yeah, in Korea, and it was actually in Vietnam, they had a couple of them out there too. Not a big history. It's hard finding a picture of one of these in Vietnam. But this was a 1957 build, and it was owned by Allied Helicopters in Tulsa, Oklahoma for 50 years. And one gentleman bought it and had it probably less than a year and realized it didn't have the power to do what he needed to do, which was to take off and go up into the mountain range of 7,000 feet high. And this little engine really doesn't have the power to carry people and guns and everything to go hunting. So he put it for sale out in Idaho, and I saw it, and I went out and flew it in and around the Snake River Canyon and flipped out on it, loved it. And the circle's complete because, like I said, I was brought into aviation when I was 10 by this helicopter on a TV show, and on Whirlybirds.
Whirlybirds was a show?
Whirlybirds was a TV show produced by Desi Lou, which is Lucille Ball, and they were my heroes. And I've got some versions of their show, maybe half of them. They made 111 episodes. But so it was built when I was 10 years old. It was built on the same production line, right down the line from the aircraft that were operating on the TV series. And I flew helicopters in the Army and in the civilian world for about 6,000 hours.
What did you fly again in the Army?
Oh God, I flew Hueys, I flew Cobras, Loaches. This was, like I said, built when I was 10, and I went through that whole career of helicopters in the civilian and Army. Put about 6,000 hours in fact, over 6. And when the bottom fell out, I was flying in New York for Donald Trump, and we were flying a series of aircraft. They were Sikorsky S-61s, which is like the presidential helicopter, but it's longer. It held 27 total people, 3 crew and 24 passengers. And we flew it all weather, New York, Atlantic City, for about 6 years, 7 years before it went out of business, unfortunately. And when that happened, that's when I went back into airplanes. And I didn't want to because this is what I love to do. But I went through the airplane market, through the 727, 37, 57, 60, and retired off to the 767. And a lot of turboprops and light jets in between there too. So it was a great career.
Yeah.
Great career.
You're still alive.
Probably the best thing that happened to me was I got to fly the presidential candidate in 2000. That was George W. Bush. For 3 months, only 6 of us operated at 757, and that was quite an interesting period because the airplane had on board not just the campaign folks up front, but the last 2/3 of the airplane was all the media, press. Everybody from cable TV you see now was on that airplane.
Wow!
Some I have good stories, some I have not so good stories. But it was a great
So
great
you used
time.
to fly around the president?
Flew Garth Brooks, Ireland, in a 757 on tour, and in helicopters in the New York area flew everybody. I mean, everybody from Hollywood has a place out in the Hamptons, and we flew there like commuters. Completely rebuilt, restored. It went through what they call a 1,200-hour inspection for helicopters. That's where they completely come apart. And right now I am approaching the midlife, 600 hours, where I have to take off the rotor system, take off the fuel tanks, open up the transmission, all sorts of good stuff like that. But yeah, this is...
See the garage door opener there?
Yeah, that's the hangar door opener. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, actually,
Thank you very
they
much.
were using this for instrument training. That's why it's got all those instruments in there. You can actually fly an instrument landing system on this helicopter like you can in a big jet. One of the things that made me sell my airplane, I had my second one for 34 years, and I was to the Bahamas, to Canada, everywhere with that airplane. It was great. When I retired from the airline, I didn't want to fly at night anymore. I didn't want to fly with suitcases. I did not want to talk on the radio. I didn't want to file flight plans. I just want to fly like a bird below 1,000 feet and look at the view.
And, I had this before I retired with some other people, and I ended up ending it with the airplane myself. It's painted with Army colors from 1941 before the Second World War. They were blue and yellow, but when the war started, they painted them in the Army OD. What this airplane is actually, it's a 1953, and it's got an Air Force serial number. So this used to be an Air Force plane. With my partners years ago, they painted the blue and yellow. We call it the Chowhound because down in Plymouth, Mass, I'm known as the breakfast guy. And we throw in for gas and food, and we fly somewhere in New England and go to breakfast. And I do it usually every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's turned out to be like a big club. Its maintenance is very high, but I used to be a mechanic also, and before the airlines, and I do most of my own. Some of it I have to farm out, but I do a lot of maintenance on it too. This plane doesn't require a co-pilot. You only need one pilot, and it's certificated for 11 seats, but I've only got 6 in here. Every seat you put in, the insurance goes up. I used to have 8 in there, but I took the other 2 out. And when we go to a restaurant, you had 10 seats filled, and we go to a restaurant with 10 people, you can't get a table for 10 either. So I like to sit with the people that I fly with. So.
What are you checking the oil, I guess?
No, I'm putting some gas in. I got here short on gas because the runway down the way was out of fuel where I was going to stop for a fuel stop.
So where'd you fly in from?
Leamington, Maine.
I won't distract you because I know you probably need the fuel.
I need the fuel. I'm going to try not to run it over. Hard to see down in there.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
1959 Piper Tri-Pacer. Actually was built in 58. But this is the one that has 160 horsepower and got more gump. Can take 4 people off the ground and maybe do 130 if the conditions are right. So
Wow.
I've had it for 42 years.
Wonderful.
I got my private, I bought this. And seems like I just kept it.
Great. Any
They're
other?
very problem free. Well, you got to tend to them, but they're problem free. You know?
They're
Simple
reliable, simple.
Simple and reliable.
I like it. Yeah.
All fabric.
All fabric.
And mostly all fabric except for the cowling.
And that propeller is.
Oh,
Looks like it's
standard 74
standard
inch.
size, Yeah.
It would put on a 160 horsepower engine.
How long have you been coming to?
Oh, for
Plymouth.
since I moved here 5-6 years ago.
You come every
Yeah,
season.
we try to every weather permitting. Try to come over here.
What was your name?
David Adams.
David Adams from
And
Ossipee.
from Ossipee. I'm not a retired airline pilot, so I retired from the Navy, but not an airline. So, but everybody, we're all welcome. And all our pins and things are fine. We had an uneventful landing. The hardest part about this plane is getting in it. We all got to go through this door.
Yeah,
Oh,
Giuseppe Balanca was the designer.
So you feel comfortable flying Italian planes?
Oh yes, oh yeah. He was ahead of his time. I think. I know he was ahead of his time as far as aerodynamics were concerned. He had some great ideas for airplanes that were very low drag. When you look at how swept the windshield is, for instance, compared to some other airplanes of the era, it's very slippery. The wing has got a tapered form to it, which is more efficient than a wing that's just rectangular in shape. The retractable landing gear, that's worth 30 miles an hour
This
airspeed.
is wood, right?
It is. The wing is 100% wood.
He told me that.
Yeah. Then it's got a steel tube fuselage wrapped in fabric.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really a very advanced airplane for 1946. 165 horsepower. Yeah, it's called a Franklin, and it's a 6-cylinder, horizontally opposed.
What is the cruise?
It's supposed to do about 150 miles per hour. It couldn't quite do that with more than me aboard. It'll do 150 with me, but if I have another passenger or two, then you're probably looking at 145, 140. And it's not bad. Not bad for 165 horsepower. Yeah. And like I said, the landing gear is largely responsible for that. You put the landing gear down and you'll slow down 30 miles an hour with the same power setting.
And it has a faster takeoff than other planes of its...
No, not really. No, it stalls very slowly. It takes off pretty quickly. I mean, slow speed. It doesn't take a whole lot of runway to get off the ground. But then once you get the gear up and level off in cruise, it goes.
Well, my name is Steve Christie. I'm from Lebanon, New Hampshire. I've owned this plane for 13 years. I bought it in 2001. It was wrecked over in Moultonborough, New Hampshire. And Dino and a couple of other friends of mine took it out in pieces and trucked it over to Lebanon, where we finished dismantling it. And then I trucked it out to a little town in Missouri, where it was rebuilt. And then
They specialized in that
They
there?
specialize in this particular plane, which is a Cessna 195. It was built in 1948. This is the first all-metal airplane that Cessna built, and it's the last one that Cessna built with a radial engine in it.